Black Viper never scared me. That was my sister's voice across the ballroom. She had no idea I knew what Black Viper really was. Then an officer saw me. He stopped, stood at attention, and called me by a name my family was never supposed to hear. Minutes later, I discovered someone had been using my identity for 12 years. Then I found out my father, who had supposedly been dead for 7 years, was still alive. And the person I trusted to protect me. He wasn't who he claimed to be. If you were in my position, would you trust your family, or uncover the truth no matter who gets hurt? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe if you want to hear what happened next. Black Viper never scared me. My sister said it loudly enough for everyone in the Meridian Crown Ballroom to hear. I was standing 6 feet away when she said it, holding a glass of sparkling water and trying to remember why I had agreed to attend her engagement dinner in the first place. My name is Alice Anderson. I am 38 years old, and in my family's version of my life, I am the quiet sister who works in financial compliance, avoids attention, and has no connection to military intelligence. That version is convenient. It is also false. VIPER Anderson, my younger sister, had spent the last 10 years becoming exactly the opposite of me. She loved crowded rooms, expensive clothes, influential people, and stories that made her sound more important than she was. That Friday night, she wore a black silk dress and stood beside her fiancé, Calder Vane, while nearly 70 guests watched her. Calder was the reason I had accepted the invitation. I did not trust him. I had met him twice before. Both times, he had asked unusually precise questions about my work. Not where I worked, not what I did for a living. He wanted to know which companies I audited, which government contractors appeared in their records, and whether I still handled restricted financial information. Normal people did not ask those questions at dinner. So I watched him, and he watched me back. Vesper raised her champagne glass. Come on, Alice. You remember the stories. I remember you telling them. A few guests laughed. She smiled. Black Viper never scared me. Someone near the bar asked, You actually knew people from Black Viper? Vesper shrugged. Enough to know they weren't as dangerous as people claim. I lowered my glass. She had no idea how close she was standing to the truth. 12 years earlier, I had worked for a federal financial investigations program. My specialty was following money through shell companies, false charities, and accounts designed to disappear after a single transaction. Eventually, that work brought me into Black Viper. The name was never supposed to become public. It was not a conventional military unit. It was a small counterintelligence operation used for cases involving compromised officials, stolen government credentials, and financial networks that could not be handled through ordinary channels. I was never the person carrying a weapon. I was the person finding the trail. Then one investigation went wrong. An informant disappeared, a government database was breached, and someone inside the operation betrayed us. I resigned, returned to ordinary work, and never told my family what I had done. Vesper believed I had simply become boring. I preferred it that way. At 8:31 p.m., a waiter dropped a tray near the ballroom entrance. Several guests turned toward the noise. I looked at the window. A man reflected in the glass was not looking at the fallen glasses. He was watching Calder. Then Calder quietly left the ballroom. I waited 30 seconds before following him. The service corridor was nearly empty. I saw him enter a storage room and close the door. He approached. Before I could touch the handle, I heard him speaking. I already told you. She isn't supposed to know. Froze. Another voice answered from inside. Then make sure she doesn't. I stepped back. The door opened. Calder walked out holding a small black case. He saw me immediately. For 2 seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled. Alice. Lost. No. His eyes dropped to the case. Then why are you here? I could ask you the same thing. He moved closer. You should go back to the party. Why? Because tonight is supposed to be about Vesper. I looked at the case. What is in there? His expression changed. Nothing dramatic. Just enough. You really haven't changed, he said. That isn't what I meant. I stared at him. I've never met you before this year. He stared back. Then he said quietly, That's not what I meant. Before I could respond, footsteps approached from the far end of the corridor. A uniformed officer appeared. He was older, perhaps in his late 50s, with silver hair and a rigid military posture. He looked at Calder first, then at me. His entire expression changed. He stopped walking, straightened his back, and stood at attention. Alice Anderson, he said. Calder went completely still. The officer gave me a formal salute. Ma'am. Commander Vale, I said. Vesper came around the corner a moment later. She looked from me to the officer, then to Calder. What is going on? Commander Orson Vale ignored her. His eyes remained fixed on me. I was told you had permanently left government service. I did. Then we have a problem. What kind? He glanced at Calder. The kind that brought your name back into a system where it should not exist. Vesper frowned. What does that mean? Calder stepped backward. I noticed the black case was gone. Someone had taken it from him. I looked toward the corridor. There was nobody there. Then Vale said something that made the room seem suddenly smaller. Someone has been using Alice Anderson's old black VIPER credentials for the past 6 months. Vesper stared at me. You have black VIPER credentials. I did not answer, because at that exact moment my phone vibrated. One message. Unknown number. Stop looking at Calder. I read it twice. Then another message arrived. Look at your sister. I slowly raised my eyes. Vesper was watching me. She looked frightened. And for the first time that night, I wondered whether my sister's careless bragging had been the least dangerous thing she had done. The ballroom music continued behind us. People were still laughing. Nobody knew that the woman they thought was my sister's quiet, ordinary sibling had just been warned to stop investigating the man she was engaged to. And nobody knew that the message had not been sent by Calder. It had been sent from a number registered to my own sister. The message from Vesper's number remained on my screen long after the ballroom music stopped sounding like music. Look at your sister. I looked at Vesper. She looked back at me, frightened. Alice, why are you staring at me? Did you send me a message? What message? I showed her the screen. Her face tightened. That wasn't me. Commander Orson Vale took my phone. He studied the number, then looked at Vesper. Who else has access to your phone? No one. Calder. She hesitated. Sometimes, she admitted. That was enough for Orson. Both of you are leaving the hotel. We followed him through a private exit into the parking garage. Rain had started outside. I was halfway to my car when I noticed a dark sedan 2 spaces away. The engine was running. The driver was Calder. He was not alone. A woman sat beside him. I recognized her profile immediately. Marlo Quill. My father's former attorney. I had seen her at his funeral 7 years earlier. I stepped behind a concrete pillar. Don't move. Vesper looked at the sedan. Who is that? Someone who shouldn't be here. Orson moved toward the car. The sedan accelerated away before he reached it. He returned moments later. They were waiting for you. Why? That is what we're going to find out. At 11:18 p.m., we reached a federal office downtown. Orson led us into a conference room and placed a folder on the table. This stays here. Opened it. The first pages showed financial transfers and digital access requests. Then I saw a photograph of myself. It had been taken 12 years earlier, outside a black VIPER facility. Why is this here? Because the person using your identity has access to your old files. Vesper leaned forward. What did they steal? Nothing. I looked at Orson. Nothing. They haven't stolen information. They've requested permission to access it. Understood. Someone wasn't breaking into the system. Someone was teaching the system to trust Alice Anderson again. Orson showed us a list of facilities. A naval logistics center, a defense communications archive, a classified research repository, and the National Maritime Records Vault. I stared at the last name. That facility was decommissioned. Partially. What is stored there? Something your father spent years protecting. I turned toward him. You knew my father. Yes. How well? Well enough to know he was afraid of the wrong people. VIPER stood. What does our father have to do with this? Orson removed an old photograph. Our father stood beside 3 men. One was Orson. Another was a black VIPER officer. The third man looked familiar. I had seen him in one of my father's old photographs. But he was supposed to be dead. Who is he? Asked. Orson answered quietly. Elias Anderson. VIPER's face went white. That can't be. Your father disappeared 7 years ago. My father died 7 years ago. No. Orson looked at us. He disappeared. The room went silent. I remembered the closed coffin. The official explanation. The funeral. The way my mother had refused to let anyone open the casket. You're saying our father is alive? No. I'm saying he was alive when this photograph was taken. Orson pointed to the date. 6 months ago. The exact month someone began using my black VIPER credentials. I looked at him. Where is he? We don't know. Then why show us this? Because he left something behind. What? A ledger. At 2:06 a.m., Orson drove us to the old Anderson house. The place had been empty since our mother's death. Dust covered the furniture, and the study still looked exactly as our father had left it. I searched his desk. VIPER searched the shelves. Orson checked the windows. Then I noticed a scratch beneath my father's chair. I lifted the loose floorboard. A narrow metal box was hidden underneath. Inside was a handwritten ledger. The first pages listed companies, payments, and account numbers. Then came government officials, private investigators, black VIPER personnel. I turned another page. VIPER's name appeared beside 12 transfers. She stared at it. I never saw that. Then why is your name here? I don't know. I turned the page. A handwritten sentence appeared beneath the final entry. Alice must never know what VIPER agreed to. VIPER stopped breathing. Alice, I can explain. You knew something. Yes. How much? I don't know. That isn't an answer. She wiped her face. 6 months ago, Calder told me someone was investigating you. Who? He said they had files from your old work. And you believed him. I thought he was protecting me. You helped him. I thought I was protecting you. Before I could answer, the front door slammed. Orson reached for his weapon. Footsteps moved through the hallway. Low. Deliberate. A man's voice came from the darkness. You should have left your father's house alone. Calder. I stared toward the doorway. He stepped into the study. Then another voice came from behind him. A woman's voice. Let them find the ledger. Marlowe Quill appeared beside him. She looked directly at me and smiled. Because now they finally know exactly where to look. Then they finally know exactly where to look. Marlowe Quill said it calmly, as if she had just given me directions to a restaurant. I kept my eyes on her. Calder stood beside her with his hands visible. He looked less confident than he had at the hotel. That told me something had changed. Commander Vale moved between us. Step away from the door. Marlowe smiled. Alice, your father always said you were the careful one. I felt my stomach tighten. How did you know my father? I was his attorney. You were more than that. She looked at VIPER. Your sister helped us locate something your father hid. The ledger. I held it tighter. Marlowe's eyes moved toward it. There it is. Orson raised his weapon. Don't move. Marlowe did not flinch. You won't shoot me. Try me. Calder stepped forward. The ledger isn't evidence. Then what is it? A map. To what? He looked at me. To the people your father protected. That changed everything. I opened the ledger again. The names weren't simply payments. Each name had a symbol beside it. Some had dates, others had locations. I recognized 3 locations immediately. A hospital in Seattle, a warehouse in Tacoma, private clinic outside Portland. These aren't bank records, I said. No, Orson replied. They're protection locations. He didn't answer. Marlowe smiled. Your father created a private network for witnesses. People who knew what the consortium had done. I turned toward Orson. You knew? Yes. You helped him? Yes. Then why did you let me believe he was dead? Orson's expression hardened. Because your father asked me to. That isn't good enough. It was the only way to keep you alive. I laughed once. It wasn't funny. You all decided what I was allowed to know. Marlowe interrupted. Your father made that decision long before I did. Why are you here? To finish what he started. She pointed at the ledger. I need the locations. You already have them. No. Have fragments. You have the original. Calder moved toward me. Orson blocked him. You're not touching her. Marlowe looked irritated. Then we'll do this another way. She pulled out her phone. A photograph appeared on the screen. It showed VIPER entering a private bank 6 months earlier. Then another. VIPER signing documents. Then another. VIPER handing a sealed envelope to a man outside a train station. I looked at my sister. What did you do? I was trying to help. With what? Paying them. Who? The people who said they had information about Dad. I stared at her. She lowered her voice. They told me he was alive. And you believed them. I wanted to. That answer hurt. How much did you give them? All the money I had. Marlowe corrected her. Not all. VIPER looked at her. You told me that was the last payment. I lied. Orson stepped toward Marlowe. Who else knows about the ledger? Everyone who needs to. That isn't an answer. No, it isn't. Then the lights went out. The house fell completely dark. I heard VIPER gasp. A door slammed. Someone grabbed my wrist. I reacted before thinking. I twisted free, drove my elbow backward, and heard a man curse. He stumbled. I moved toward the window. Side headlights flashed. 3 vehicles. Not police. Orson shouted. Down! Glass shattered. Everyone dropped. Gunfire struck the walls. VIPER crawled toward me. Alice! Stay down. Orson fired toward the hallway. Marlowe was gone. So was Calder. I realized they had used the attack as cover. We waited until the shooting stopped. When Orson finally stood, the study looked destroyed. The ledger was still in my hand. But the metal box was gone. I looked at the floor. Someone took the drive. What drive? VIPER asked. Froze. There had been no drive in the box when I found it. I remembered my father's handwriting. The ledger was not the thing he wanted protected. It was the thing he wanted found. I turned the final page. A second message had been written beneath the first. If they take the ledger, let them. I read the next line. The real record is with Alice. My hands went cold. What does that mean? VIPER asked. I looked at Orson. He was staring at me. You know, I said. He shook his head. Not this time. Then why are you looking at me like that? Because your father never trusted computers. I looked down at myself. My clothes. My watch. My necklace. Then I remembered something I had not thought about in 12 years. The small scar beneath my left wrist. A scar I had gotten during my final Black VIPER assignment. Pulled my sleeve back. Orson's face changed. That's impossible. What? That isn't a scar. He reached toward it then stopped. It is an embedded storage device. VIPER stared at me. You've been carrying it for 12 years. I didn't know. Orson looked toward the shattered window. Your father did. Then my phone vibrated. One new message. From my father's old number. Alice, if you can read this, they have found you. I opened the message beneath it. The first person you should not trust is Orson Vale. I turned toward Orson. He did not answer. That was enough. We boarded. 20 minutes later we reached the museum. The building looked abandoned from the outside. Inside, dust covered the exhibits. Orson walked directly to an old navigation display. He removed a brass compass. A section of the wall opened. Behind it was a narrow staircase. We descended beneath the museum. The archive was larger than I expected. Rows of locked cabinets filled the room. I walked toward the nearest one. The label read, Anderson E. My father's initials. Opened it. Inside were passports, photographs, bank records, and handwritten notes. Then I found a folder marked Black Viper. Alice Anderson. Opened it. The first page contained my photograph. The second contained a medical report. The third made me stop. It said that 12 years ago, I had not resigned from Black Viper. I had been officially listed as deceased for 11 minutes. VIPER stared over my shoulder. Why would they declare you dead? Kept reading. The answer was written below. Alice Anderson was used as the carrier for classified evidence recovered during Operation Nightglass. I looked at my wrist. The device was never an accident. It had been the evidence. And then I found the final page. It contained one sentence in my father's handwriting. If Alice ever discovers the device, tell her the person who ordered its implantation is still alive. I looked at Orson. He was pale. Who ordered it? He didn't speak. VIPER turned toward him. Commander. Orson finally answered. Your father. I stepped backward. No. He ordered the procedure. Why? Because the evidence could not be stored anywhere else. You let him do that to me. I tried to stop him. Did you? No. The answer was quiet, honest, and somehow worse. Then the archive door slammed shut. Every light went out. A voice came through the darkness. You finally found the room. I recognized it. Marlowe Quill. But she wasn't alone. A second voice spoke from behind us. You were never supposed to remember, Alice. Turn. Orson had raised his weapon. VIPER grabbed my arm. And from the darkness behind the archive shelves, a man stepped into the emergency light. He was older. His hair was gray. His face had changed. But I knew him immediately. My father was standing 10 feet away. Alive. For several seconds I could not move. The man standing beneath the emergency light had my father's face. Older. Thinner. His hair was almost completely gray. But there was no mistaking him. Dad! VIPER whispered the word behind me. My father looked at her first. Then at me. Alice! I felt anger before relief. How are you alive? He took one step forward. Orson raised his weapon. Elias, don't. My father stopped. You still point that thing at me after all these years. Because I don't know whose side you're on. My father looked at him. You never did. Marlowe stepped from behind the shelves. Enough. She held a gun against VIPER's back. My sister froze. I turned toward her. Let her go. Marlowe smiled. Give me the device. I looked at my wrist. So that's why you're here. That's why everyone is here. My father shook his head. No. They don't understand what it contains. Marlowe's expression hardened. Then explain it. He looked at me. The device contains the original Nightglass evidence. What is Nightglass? A surveillance operation created to identify a private network that had infiltrated government contracts, intelligence offices, and financial institutions. I stared at him. And you were part of it. I created the financial side. Then why did you disappear? Because I discovered the network was larger than we believed. Orson lowered his weapon slightly. You discovered someone inside Black Viper was helping them. My father nodded. Not someone. Who? My father looked at Marlowe. He fired. The bullet struck the metal cabinet beside him. Orson returned fire, forcing her behind a shelf. Vesper dropped to the floor. I grabbed her arm and pulled her behind a cabinet. Are you hurt? No. Another shot echoed through the archive. Orson moved toward Marlowe. My father pulled me toward a side passage. What are you doing? Getting you out. You've been alive for 7 years. Yes. You let us bury you. I had no choice. You always had a choice. He stopped. For the first time I saw pain on his face. You're right. That answer made me angrier. Then why? Because after the operation failed, they came after your mother. Froze. What? They threatened her. You told us she died of natural causes. She did. But she knew. She knew enough. I stared at him. You made everyone believe you were dead. Yes. And me. You were the one person they could use against me. I remembered the years after his supposed death. The phone calls that never came. The unanswered questions. The anger I had buried. You could have told me. If I had, you would have looked for me. Yes. And they would have found you. He was right. I hated that he was right. Crash came from the archive. Orson shouted. Alice! We returned to the main room. Marlowe was gone. Vesper was still there. So was Orson. But the cabinet containing the night glass records had been opened. My father looked at it. She took the wrong file. What does that mean? She thinks the evidence is stored in the archive. And it isn't. No. I looked at my wrist. He nodded. It is inside you. I swallowed. How do we get it out? We don't. Then what? You have to activate it. How? My father looked toward Orson. He knows. Turn. Orson sighed. There was an activation sequence. You knew this entire time. I knew there was a device. I didn't know it was still functional. My father interrupted. I designed the sequence. Then tell me. It requires 3 things. What? Your biometric signature. My old black VIPER credential. And a verbal authorization. I stared at him. What authorization? My father hesitated. Your own voice. I almost laughed. You implanted evidence inside me and then made me the only person who could access it. You were the only person I trusted. You didn't trust me. You used me. He accepted the accusation. Yes. The first person you should not trust is Orson Vale. I read the message again. Then a third time. Orson stood across the ruined study, watching me carefully. Vesper was beside me, still trying to understand what she had just heard. What did he say? She asked. I locked my phone. Nothing. Orson noticed the movement. Alice. I looked at him. For 12 years, I had believed Orson was one of the few people who had protected my father. He had appeared in old photographs, new details about Black VIPER that were never made public, and had treated me with a respect I never understood. Now my father's final warning had turned all of that into a question. Where did you get that message? Orson asked. From my father's old number. His expression changed. That number was deactivated 7 years ago. I know. Then someone is using it. Or someone wants me to believe that. He stared at me. For the first time since I had met him again, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. Vesper stepped between us. Can somebody please tell me what is happening? I looked at her. Apparently, Dad left something inside me. She stared at my wrist. The small scar beneath my skin had never looked unusual. I had gotten it during my last Black VIPER operation. I had been told it was a minor injury caused by broken equipment. Orson had just told me otherwise. He moved closer. Your father used experimental data storage technology. You expect me to believe someone implanted a drive in my wrist 12 years ago? I don't expect you to believe anything. I expect you to remember. I hated that answer. What happened during my final Black VIPER assignment? You were injured. I know. What else? I don't remember. That was intentional. Vesper looked at him. You erased her memory. No. Orson looked at me. Someone did. The room became silent. I remembered fragments. Warehouse. A red emergency light. My father's voice. Someone shouting my name. Then nothing. I had always assumed trauma had caused the missing memories. Now I wasn't sure. Orson took a small scanner from his coat. Give me your wrist. No. Alice, if that device is still active, someone may be able to locate you. Then tell me why my father warned me about you. Stop. I don't know. That is not good enough. I agree. Vesper looked toward the broken window. We can't stay here. She was right. At 4:15 a.m., we left the house through the back entrance. Orson wanted to take us to a secure federal facility. I refused. If my father's warning was real, the last place I wanted to go was somewhere controlled by people who knew Orson. Instead, I drove us to a small hotel near the harbor. It was an old building with 12 rooms and no security desk after midnight. We took 2 rooms. Vesper refused to sleep. She sat on the edge of the bed while I examined the ledger again. I lied to you, she said. I know. I should have told you about Calder. Yes. I didn't know he was working for Marlowe. What did you know? Vesper looked down. He told me our father had been hiding money. I stopped turning the pages. How much? Millions. Where? I don't know. Then why did you give him money? Because he showed me proof. What proof? She reached into her bag. Photograph. Father. Live. Standing outside a building in another country. The photograph had been taken 8 months earlier. I stared at it. Where did you get this? Calder. Did you verify it? No. I looked at her. You gave him money because he showed you one photograph? I thought Dad was alive. And you never told me. I was afraid you'd try to find him. I would have. That was exactly what I was afraid of. Understood then. Vesper had not been helping Marlowe because she wanted money. She had been helping because she believed she was buying information about our father. But there was another question. Where did the money go? She hesitated. A children's medical foundation. I looked at her. What? The account Calder gave me belonged to a foundation. I thought the money was going toward Dad's protection. Was it? I don't know. I turned back to the ledger. One of the account numbers matched the foundation. That meant Marlowe had not simply been stealing money. She had been using Vesper's emotional attachment to move it. And if that was true, there was another possibility. Vesper might not have been the only person being manipulated. At 6:02 a.m., someone knocked on our door. 3 slow knocks. Vesper froze. I motioned for her to stay back. Another knock. Then a voice. Alice, it's Orson. I looked through the peephole. He was alone. I didn't give him this address, I whispered. Vesper stepped backward. How did he find us? I didn't answer. I opened the door only halfway. Orson held up his hands. I need you to leave. Why? The federal facility was compromised. By whom? Someone inside my command. I stared at him. My father's message said not to trust you. His face tightened. I expected that. You expected it. Yes. Why? Because your father knew I would eventually have to choose between protecting you and protecting the operation. And what did you choose? He looked directly at me. You. Before I could respond, a gunshot echoed from the street. Orson pulled us away from the window. A bullet struck the hotel sign outside. Move! We ran through the rear stairwell. At 6:19 a.m., we reached the harbor. Fishing boats were leaving the docks as the sun began to rise. Orson led us toward a small maintenance vessel. I stopped before boarding. Where are we going? To a place your father prepared. Where? An old maritime museum. I stared at him. That museum is on the list. Yes. Why would my father hide something there? Because nobody knows the archive still exists. Vesper looked at me. Then why was it on the access list? Vesper stepped toward us. Can we argue about this after we survive? That brought me back. She was right. We had to leave. We climbed the stairs and reached the museum's main floor. The front doors were open. Outside, several vehicles had arrived. Federal agents, or people dressed like them. Orson looked through the window. They aren't mine. How many? Too many. My father walked toward a side exit. There is another way. We followed him through a storage room and into an underground parking area. A black van waited there. Stop. Where did that come from? My contingency plan. Vesper looked at me. Your family has too many contingency plans. We entered the van. My father drove. For the first 20 minutes, nobody spoke. Then I asked the question I had been avoiding. Who is Marlowe working for? My father kept his eyes on the road. She works for the Meridian Consortium. Who runs it? That is the problem. Meaning, the person at the top has never been identified. Orson looked at him. You know who it is. I know who has been signing the orders. Who? My father looked at me through the rearview mirror. Your mother. Vesper gasped. I stared at him. Our mother is dead. Yes. You just said she died naturally. She did. Then how can she be running anything? My father didn't answer immediately. Finally he said, because she was never the person you thought she was. I felt the world shift again. My mother had been a quiet woman. Teacher. A woman who hated politics. A woman who cried when my father traveled. At least that was the woman I remembered. Where is she? She's dead. Then who is signing the orders? He looked at me. Someone using her identity. Vesper leaned forward. Why would anyone do that? My father tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Because your mother's identity has access to something mine never did. What? The original Meridian Charter. Orson suddenly looked toward the rear window. Vehicle behind us. My father accelerated. The van followed. Can you lose them? I can try. The road narrowed as we entered an industrial district. The pursuing vehicle came closer. A second vehicle appeared ahead. We were trapped. My father turned sharply into an abandoned warehouse. The van crashed through a chain barrier. We stopped inside. Orson opened the rear door. Out! We ran between old machinery. The pursuing vehicles entered the warehouse. Men stepped out. I counted 6. One shouted, Alice Anderson. Step away from the others. I looked at my father. How do they know my name? He answered quietly. Because the device activated when you entered the archive. My heart dropped. So they can track me. Yes. Then we need to remove it. Not yet. Why? Because now we can use it. Orson looked at him. What are you planning? My father took a small device from his pocket. We let them find us. Then he looked at me. And when they do, Alice will send the evidence to everyone. Understood. The device was not just storage. It was a transmitter. The men moved closer. My father whispered the activation phrase. Alice, say your full name. I stepped forward. My name is Alice Anderson. The device beneath my wrist became warm. A light appeared under my skin. Then every phone in the warehouse began vibrating. The men stopped. One looked at his screen. His face went pale. The night glass evidence had been released. But I had barely begun to understand what I had carried for 12 years. My father's phone rang. He answered. Nobody spoke. Then he slowly lowered it. What happened? I asked. He looked at me. Marlowe wasn't the one who ordered the attack. Who was? My father turned toward Orson. Someone just killed the last person who could identify the real leader. Orson's face changed. Who? My father gave a name. And I knew it immediately. It was the name of the officer who had stood at attention when he first saw me. Orson Vale. But Orson was standing right beside us. Which meant my father was accusing him of something much worse. He was accusing him of being dead. And suddenly I understood why my father's first warning had told me not to trust Orson. For 3 seconds nobody moved. My father's accusation hung inside the warehouse. Orson Vale is dead. The man standing beside me looked at him without blinking. That is impossible, he said. My father shook his head. No. What is impossible is that you are still alive. I looked between them. Someone explain this. The man I had trusted for the past 2 days slowly lowered his weapon. Alice, your father is confused. No. My father's voice was firm. He is not confused. Vesper stepped closer to me. Then who is he? My father answered. His name is Silas Venn. The man beside me raised his weapon again. Elias, don't. I stepped backward. You're not Orson. He looked at me. I am Orson Vale. My father shook his head. The real Orson died 12 years ago during Operation Nightglass. My stomach dropped. I remembered the first night at the Meridian Crown. The officer had seen me. He had stood at attention. He had called me Alice Anderson. At the time I had thought that proved he was legitimate. Now I understood the trap. Someone had not stolen my identity. Someone had stolen Orson's. Silas smiled. Your father always did enjoy complicated stories. He fired. My father pushed me aside. The bullet struck his shoulder. Vesper screamed. I grabbed her and pulled her behind a concrete pillar. Silas moved toward us. Give me the device, Alice. You're not getting it. You don't understand what you released. Neither do you. He stopped. Then he laughed. That is exactly why you were chosen. Felt cold. What does that mean? Silas looked at my wrist. 12 years ago, your father needed somewhere to hide the Nightglass evidence. You were the perfect carrier. My father pressed a hand against his wound. You were never supposed to know. Silas continued. Your father believed the evidence would expose the consortium. He was wrong. It also contained the identities of everyone who had infiltrated the government. Then why did you want it? Because I don't want to expose them. He stepped closer. I want to control them. Vesper looked at me. That's what all of this was about. No, my father said. He looked at me. The evidence contains something else. Silas's expression changed. Don't. My father ignored him. The Nightglass files contain proof that the Meridian Consortium was created by people inside our own government. I stared at him. Who? Senior officials. Intelligence directors. Military contractors. Judges. Financial regulators. Vesper whispered. How many? Enough to control elections, contracts, investigations, and prosecutions. I finally understood the scale of what had followed us. Marlowe had not been trying to steal money. Calder had not been trying to marry Vesper for social access. They had been trying to recover a file that could expose an entire network. And I had carried it for 12 years. Silas raised his weapon. Give me the activation device. It already transmitted, I said. Yes. He smiled. And that's the problem. My phone began vibrating. Then Vesper's. Then my father's. Messages arrived from journalists, investigators, and unknown government numbers. The evidence had spread. But something was wrong. One message contained only 3 words. Nightglass was altered. I looked at my father. What does that mean? His expression changed. Someone changed the files before they were transmitted. Who? He looked at Silas. Silas smiled. Now you're finally asking the right question. A loud crash came from the warehouse entrance. Marlowe appeared with 2 armed men. She looked at Silas. You were supposed to kill them. Silas turned. You were supposed to stay away. I don't take orders from you. That was the first time I saw fear in his face. Marlowe raised her gun. You've lost control. Silas answered. So have you. They were no longer working together. That was our opportunity. My father pointed toward a side exit. Run. We moved. Vesper followed me through the machinery while gunfire erupted behind us. We reached a narrow service tunnel. My father stumbled. Caught him. You're bleeding badly. I'll survive. You always say that. He smiled faintly. I was right once. We kept moving until we reached an abandoned railway platform. Train passed without stopping. Then the shooting stopped. We waited. Nothing. Vesper looked at me. Where is Orson? I shook my head. There was never an Orson. That sentence hurt more than I expected. The person who had stood at attention. The person who had claimed to protect me. The person who had told me my father was alive. He had been someone else. My father sat against the wall. I should have warned you earlier. You should have told me everything 12 years ago. Yes. Why didn't you? Because I was afraid. I looked at him. You? Yes. He took a breath. I was afraid that if I trusted you with the truth, you would spend your life fighting the people who hurt us. I did. I know. But now I have to finish this. He looked at me. No. I frowned. You spent 12 years protecting evidence. Yes. And now it has been released. Yes. Then what's left? Your choice. I did not understand. He pointed to my wrist. The device has two functions. Transmission and storage. No. Then what? Transmission and deletion. I stared at him. You can erase the original night glass evidence. Why would I? Because the altered copy has already reached the public. So if the original remains, they can use it to identify every protected witness. Froze. That was the final choice. If I kept the evidence, innocent people could die. If I destroyed it, the consortium could claim the released files were fabricated. Vesper sat beside me. What would Mom have done? My father looked away. Understood. Our mother had spent years protecting witnesses. She had not been the mastermind. She had been part of the protection network. Her identity had been stolen after her death because it gave the consortium access to the same people she had protected. That was why they had used her name. That was why our family had been targeted. I looked at my father. Can I separate the evidence? Yes. Keep the proof and delete the identities. Yes. Then that's what I'll do. I activated the device. The screen on my phone displayed hundreds of files. I selected every file containing a protected identity. Then I deleted them, one by one. When the final file disappeared, the device shut down. The night glass evidence that remained was enough to prove the conspiracy, but the people who could be harmed by it were safe. Hours later, federal investigators found Marlowe and Silas. Marlowe had been wounded during their confrontation. Silas tried to escape through the rail yard. He did not make it. The released evidence triggered arrests across several agencies. Some officials resigned. Others were prosecuted. The Meridian Consortium collapsed within weeks. Calder Vane agreed to testify. He admitted he had targeted Vesper because Marlowe believed she could be used to reach me. Vesper publicly admitted her role in moving the money. She returned what she could and cooperated with investigators. She did not receive a clean slate. She received something more useful. A chance to take responsibility. My father survived his wound. He eventually gave a full statement about Nightglass. He also apologized to me. Not once. Many times. I did not forgive him immediately. But I stayed. That mattered. 6 months later, I stood outside the Meridian Crown Hotel again. Vesper was beside me. You know, she said, I still can't believe I told everyone Black Viper never scared me. Smiled. You were trying to impress them. I was. And. She laughed. And I was an idiot. We entered the hotel. The same ballroom was hosting another event. This time nobody knew why I was there. I preferred it. Then someone called my name. Turned. A young officer stood near the entrance. He walked toward me. Up. And stood at attention. For a second my body tensed. Then he smiled. Ma'am, Commander Vale asked me to give you this. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photograph of the real Orson Vale. The photograph had been taken 13 years earlier. On the back, someone had written, "You were never the weapon, Alice. You were the witness." I folded the photograph. For years, I had believed my hidden past was something that had stolen my life. Now I understood something different. The secrets had never defined me. The choices I made after discovering them did. Marlowe wanted control. Silas wanted power. Calder wanted access. The people who betrayed us wanted silence. They lost all of it. Their karma was not simply prison or ruined careers. It was exposure. They had spent years controlling what other people were allowed to know. In the end, the truth became the one thing they could not control. As for Vesper and me, we did not pretend the past had never happened. We rebuilt our relationship slowly. She stopped using fearlessness as a performance. I stopped hiding every difficult part of myself. And I never returned to Black Viper. I didn't need the title. I didn't need the clearance. I didn't need another officer to stand at attention. I had spent 12 years carrying a secret that was never mine to own. Now I was finally free to live without it. My name is Alice Anderson. My sister once said Black Viper never scared her. She was wrong. Black Viper was never the thing we needed to fear. The real danger was what people were willing to do when they believed the truth could never reach the light. And the real victory was making sure it did. If you enjoyed Alice's story, subscribe for more stories about hidden identities, family secrets, unexpected betrayals, and the kind of justice that arrives when the people who thought they controlled everything finally lose control of the truth.